region. Oh, sorry, I started a little early. So just so everybody's aware, this meeting is being recorded. A little bit of housekeeping. Please try to keep yourself on mute if not already muted by default. That just helps keep the recording clear. And as we move throughout the presentation, feel free to add your questions or your comments in the chat box, and we will be addressing those after the presentations. And once we get through the presentations, we can kind of open it up for question and answer once we get through all the questions in the chat. So with that,
One more thing, Zach, would
oh, go
be
ahead.
some of the names we can't tell
Oh,
who we are. So please type your name in the chat if you've attended.
yeah. And with that, we'll get moving here. So hopefully everybody can hear me okay and see the presentation. If you can't, feel free to make note of that in the chat, and we'll try to address that. So moving, there we go. So before we get started here, I just wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you for attending. Again, this is the first of two public meetings that we'll be doing, both of them today. The public comment period on the plan draft is open until January 10th. So even if your question or comment isn't addressed specifically today, feel free to reiterate those comments, or we'll do our best to provide an answer after the meeting if we don't have a chance to get to everything. To start off, I just wanted to acknowledge some of the funding that we received to complete this planning effort. We received 3 grants from the Office of Wisconsin Coastal Management, so the Wisconsin Coastal Management Program, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, so NOAA. And that was under the Coastal Zone Management Act grants. And so those grant numbers are right there. So thank you to Wisconsin Coastal Management and NOAA for funding these efforts in part. Meeting framework, we're going to start, we kind of touched on the welcome and introduction there. We're going to jump right into the summary of the preliminary draft amendment. So we'll real briefly go over the importance of the plan elements, changes to the plan, and then following that summary, we'll provide everybody with a brief introduction to the web tool we put together, which is available for viewing by the public, and we'd love your comments and questions about that web tool as well. So following that web tool presentation, we'll dive right into discussion, public comment, and that'll be it. So a brief history on the plan for those not familiar. This is a decades old effort. So this is an amendment to a pre-existing regional plan. This effort was started back in the 1980s, originally requested by Milwaukee County Parks, and then very quickly following that initial request, all the other counties joined in and made similar requests. And so this was an effort that took several years to put together. This plan was an intensive inventory of all of the natural areas within the region. That first report was published in 1997 with a very small amendment in 1998 specific to one municipality. And then a broader regional amendment to the plan was adopted again in 2010. And we initiated this current update in 2019. And we're hoping to have this amendment adopted in 2025. And I'll touch on the timeline later on. So basically, the main point is to identify the remaining natural areas, critical species habitats, significant aquatic areas, geologic sites, and archaeological sites remaining within the region. Furthermore, we rank those natural areas and aquatic sites, specifically, and geologic sites, according to a variety of criteria, which we'll touch on in a bit. And we provide recommendations that prioritize acquisition and management um, based on multiple factors, but a lot of that comes down to the rank assigned to those individual sites. And the initial and current acquisition scheme can be seen to the right. That has not been updated for natural areas, but it has been updated for aquatic areas, which we'll touch on later on. So prior to starting this most recent update to the natural areas plan, we reached out to stakeholder groups, governmental organizations to get their feedback on the 2010 amendment, 1997 plan to improve the content, the usability of the plan, and basically we got. Oh, I heard. Sorry, everybody, please try to mute if you can. I don't think you're muted by default. So the main intent here is to provide updated information, so new sites, lost sites, designation changes, boundary changes. We need to update the hard copy map and table format to a more centralized digital repository and inventory so that it can be used more easily by both public and private users. And we need to update the original aquatic resource assessment scheme, which has not been done since the original 1997 publication, and better address common threats and management needs. So the objectives of this current plan amendment, based on that feedback, so identify, site changes, new sites, develop a digital geodatabase, develop new site profiles, which provide the basic information on all of the natural areas listed within the plan, which provide, basics on community type, significant natural resource features, and management recommendations. Provide a revised, updated aquatic resource assessment scheme and apply that to the water bodies within the region, and develop an interactive web tool hosted on the Commission's website to share all of the updated information. The basic framework of the amendment, we tried to be as consistent as possible with previous versions of the plan in terms of how the report is framed out. Basic introduction and background for chapters 1 and 2, which summarizes the findings within the 1997 and 2010 publications. The chapter 3 moves on to status of implementation. So that's basically a summary of site protection that has been accomplished since the 2010 publication. Chapter 4 breaks down new sites, so new natural areas, new critical species habitat sites, and then we also go into detail on the updated aquatic area assessment scheme and provide and apply that to the water bodies within the region, providing those new ranks. Chapter 5 just basic changes in the listed species in the region. So that's species listed as federally threatened or federally or state endangered, threatened, or special concern. And there has been a number of changes in those species. So that's not, species designation changes by us. That's designation changes by either the state or federal government. And then we also going to discuss at length changes to the uncommon, regionally uncommon species, which are our designations. So those are species that are just not found regularly within the region, or their habitat is very specified, or very specific and threatened. Um, and then chapter 6 is just basic changes to site boundaries and site ranks. So that's either so shifts in boundaries due to, say, development, or um, we visit a site and it's determined that that portion of the natural area does not meet the criteria for a natural area any longer, and so the boundary is adjusted to account for that. Or the alternative is also true in many cases where we visit a site and we determine that the natural area should be larger than it is because of the quality of adjacent plant communities, plant or animal communities. So chapter 7 um, includes many additions to the plan, uh, additions in management recommendations and prescriptions, management strategies that hadn't previously been accounted for. Chapter 8 summarizes the preliminary recommendations for um, protection and ownership. So Chapter 8 is basically a summary of all the changes to the plan, uh, and provides provides a summary of those changes by county. Chapter 9 is to be completed following public comment. So Chapter 9 will incorporate uh, comment and feedback received from both our technical advisory committee and public comment. And then Appendix A will include the natural area site profiles, which will be posted along with the web tool on the Commission's Natural Areas website. So real quick, and I won't get into terribly much detail on the changes of individual sites at this point in time. We just don't have the time to work through all of those. So real high level changes here. There to date are 478 natural areas identified within the region. Um, there are over 400 critical species habitat sites, 87 geological areas, 15 archaeological sites, and 11 grassland, grassland and forest interior reestablishment sites. So a real brief explanation here. What I have is natural area summary by county. So this is going back all the way to the original 1997 publication. Um, so we have the number of natural areas per county, per plan, just so you can see the general change in the number of natural areas that are found within each county over the years. Um, and with that, I'll hand it over to Justin so he can briefly discuss the changes to the aquatic natural areas.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. So I'll go into a bit more detail here on the aquatic areas. As Zach mentioned, these areas were first designated in the 1997 plan, but they were not revisited in the 2010 amendment. So in the 1997 plan, that plan ranked both lakes as well as individual stream reaches. So different stretches of the same river, like different stretches of the Milwaukee River, could have individual reaches ranked. For the stream ranking, the elements that were considered were water quality, morphology, so kind of the shape and characteristics of the stream, like stream flow and sinuosity, that kind of thing. Habitat connectivity, fisheries, the presence of critical species, which includes special concern, threatened, and endangered species, and then the extent and quality of the riparian buffer around that stream reach. For the lakes, there were a lot of similar rankings, but there's some different ones as well. The trophic state, or basically how nutrient enriched the lake is, was considered. The lake surface area was considered. Again, the habitat connectivity, the fisheries, critical species, and riparian buffer extents were also considered. So in this amendment, there were 118 critical stream reaches designated, and that included reaches of the Bark River, the Fox River, the Milwaukee, Mugwanago, Conomowoc, and many other reaches throughout the region, which you can see in the map on the left there. And there were 148 critical lakes designated, including Lake Beulah in Walworth County, Big Cedar Lake in Washington County, then the Nagawicca and Phantom Lakes in Waukesha County. Next slide, please, Zach. So as I mentioned, these designations weren't addressed in the 2010 amendments. And when we are looking at this new amendment, there's been a lot of additional data and models and surveys and metrics that are much more widely used for aquatic areas that have come about since 1997. We want to try to incorporate to that new knowledge to kind of reevaluate our aquatic areas with a lot of these new metrics and models. So I have some of these listed here. These include some models for lakes and streams based on their morphology or temperature from the DNR. Quite a few aquatic plant-based surveys and models and metrics published between 1999 and 2017. Some indices of biotic integrity for macroinvertebrates published in 1987 and 2003. And then a whole host of fisheries indices of biotic integrity published between 1992 and 2012, as well as a classification system for lakes published in 2019. So trying to incorporate all of this and then revisit our original ranking schemes and see what we're missing and how they should be revised. So next slide, please, Zach. So this kind of presents a really high-level vision of the lake assessment schemes. So with these assessment schemes, we tried to weight the biotic elements more heavily, and so they have a larger impact in our overall assessment. So in these new assessment schemes, each water body was assessed individually, all the lakes and all these stream reaches across the region, with a maximum potential score of up to 100 points for the lakes and for the streams. So the lake score, you can see here in the second bullet, out of 100 total points, each lake could receive up to 7 points based on its morphology, so including elements like lake size and lake type, up to 7 points for its water quality. So if a lake was impaired, it might lose points in this category, for example. Up to 20 points for its aquatic plant community, and this was not considered at all in the previous ranking. Using a lot of that new data on how aquatic plants are a really good indicator for the overall health of a lake, essentially. So up to 20 points in that category. Up to 25 points for the lake fishery, including that fishery classification model I mentioned, published in 2019. Up to 6 points for the riparian buffer around the lake. Up to 15 points for the habitat connectivity of each lake, and that includes connectivity to adjacent high-quality aquatic areas like rivers, as well as adjacent terrestrial aquatic areas like wetlands or upland forests. And then up to 20 points for the presence of rare species. And again, those are listed special concern, threatened, and endangered species within Wisconsin. Next slide, please, Zach. The stream ranking system is similar. We delineated stream reaches across the region. And then each stream reach could receive also up to 100 points. Again, 7 points for morphology, looking at the type of stream, its sinuosity, other factors. Again, the water quality of the stream. The macroinvertebrate community in the stream, relying on taxa richness as well as some IBIs to evaluate the macroinvertebrates. Looking at the fisheries of the stream, up to 25 points for that. Again, looking at IBIs by Lyons et al. To evaluate the fisheries. Up to 6 points for riparian buffer, up to 15 points for habitat connectivity, and up to 20 points for rare species. And those are similar metrics to what we use for the lakes as well. Next slide, please, Zach. So with all that, we assessed every water body across our 7-county region. Again, each lake over 10 acres was assessed kind of discretely as one entity. And then we divvied the streams up into separate reaches depending on the presence of upstream or downstream of lakes or passage barriers like dams or major confluences. Once we then applied these assessment schemes to every individual water body. So each water body received a score as well as a score for each element essentially. And only the highest scoring water bodies were then designated as aquatic areas. So if they were the top 5 percentile, they were aquatic areas of statewide significance. Between 5 to 15% were countywide or regional significance, and between 15 to 25% were local significance. So with that, you can see on the map on the right, the aquatic areas, the AQ1s are in blue, the AQ2s are in yellow, the AQ3s in orange. We had 54 lakes in the region identified as aquatic areas, including Lake Michigan as kind of a de facto AQ1. And then we had 91 stream reaches across the region that identified as aquatic areas. And as you can see, they're kind of located pretty much in every county across the region. So we had really great geographic spread of these aquatic areas. And all of this is based on, years, decades of monitoring work done by our staff, by DNR staff, by volunteers. So that really makes this whole thing possible. Next slide, please. We finally, at the end of chapter 4 here, we then compared our rankings to some other similar studies, just to kind of verify and ensure that we're on the right track, I guess, in part. And we did find that a lot of our rankings are pretty comparable with other studies of high quality areas. So most of our ranking lakes and streams were also designated in the 1997 plan. We only had 2 lakes that were not in the original plan that we've since added. We also had several ranking lakes and rivers that were identified as conservation opportunity areas in the 2015 Wisconsin Wildlife Action Plan, which is currently being updated. And then also many of our ranking lakes and streams were identified as high quality waters by DNR in a statewide effort that they did in 2022 that used some similar assessment criteria. So we do feel pretty strongly that we've identified the highest aquatic areas with our assessment schemes, and we'll be continuing to reevaluate these areas with this assessment scheme moving forward.
Well, thanks, Justin.
Yep.
So real briefly, I just wanted to introduce everybody to the Natural Areas Explorer web tool. So Ben Johnson, who is on, will talk about this in a bit more detail after the presentation here. But just so everybody's aware, this is posted on our website. We highly encourage you to look through this. This was a large add to the plan that had not previously been accounted for. So this is a significant change to the natural areas plan in general. So then we'll get into more detail on this. I just wanted to give, a brief introduction here. Basically, we have all the natural areas, all the critical species habitat sites. A lot of the associated information attributes are included within a little pop-up box, and there's a natural area site profile, which looks a lot like this. So the natural areas site profile is something many organizations asked us to compile and put together. One of the um, one of the comments we received from many organizations was just that there was not enough information available on each individual natural area. And so we, while not providing all the information we have, went into a considerable amount of detail summarizing, the key aspects or features of natural resource significance for each of these natural areas. We also, if we had them, provided uh, pictures which exemplify some unique aspect of the site. So these are intended to be something that can be, printed out or used as outreach by, the owner, the organization that owns it, if needed. Eventually, we're also going to include maps of each of these areas as well. And so that will be included along with the site profile. So timeline for completion. Following these public meetings, as I mentioned earlier in the talk here, public comment will be open through January 10th. But for those of you who joined a little later, you still have plenty of time to submit comment on the plan. So again, that is open through January 10th. Following that public comment period closure, we're going to have a final technical advisory committee, so that's TAC, approval of the final draft once we incorporate both technical advisory committee comment and public comment into the final draft. We will then submit the plan to the commission's internal planning and research committee. So that's a committee made up of our commissioners here at the Regional Planning Commission. And then it will go before the full Regional Planning Commission in March. And following that and approvals or adoption, we hope to have the plan in its final form and format available in May of 2025. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you to all of our funders, everyone that's contributed to the plan, because this has not just been, as Justin mentioned, this has not just been a sewer pack effort. This is a collaborative effort between many agencies of government, volunteers that have submitted information to us on natural areas, critical species habitat sites, aquatic areas throughout the region. So just wanted to say thank you. And with that, I think we'll go to Ben Johnson, who will give us a brief discussion into the Natural Areas web tool. So I will stop sharing, Ben, and pass that over to you.
All right, are we sharing?
We are sharing.
All right, cool. So I'll step everybody through the Natural Areas Explorer web tool. So when you first sign in, you'll see a little disclaimer about our data policy, but also information about who funded the project. One thing I wanted to explain about this tool is that it needs to remain very much true to the plan and have all the technical information that the plan has, but it also has to be very accessible to the public because so I built it for planners, for land trusts, for students, for property owners, for municipalities, because the plan itself is a very technical, big printed plan. And in order to make that accessible and to a wider audience, that's really the goal of this tool. So it starts out with an introduction of what it is and the criteria that goes into natural areas. Probably what people use the most is the natural areas map, As you zoom down, you can see like an overview of it at different scale levels, and you can also enlarge this to a full screen. At different levels, you can see I have things optimized so that different layers turn on and off. Where are we at? We're going to zoom down on the Brookfield Swamp right now. You can click on it, and in the pop-up, you'll see some information about it with the link to the site profile that Zach had talked about. And back to the Explorer. As you zoom down, you can also see the critical species habitat sites pop up with the white outline. Those are set at that zoom level, so you'll have to zoom down to actually see those. But also in this map, we have the regional lakes and also our regional streams. There's also, through the pop-up, you can see the rank. And that was Zion Woods. I want to click on a stream reach here. Excuse me. There we go. So this is Underwood Creek. It's a AQ3 for ranking. We will eventually develop site profiles for lakes and streams as well. Pewaukee Lake is an AQ3 lake. So everyone should explore that map. That's like I said, I think that's probably what people are going to use the most. Along with the map, we have lots of information about plant community types that coincide with our natural areas. And if you can hover over these, you can get a brief description of them. And you can also enlarge it to read it easier. But also the forest communities and wetlands and fens and bogs. Further down on this home page, we have specifics about from the plan, broken down into each county. The different county tabs will break down exactly how many acres, as well as a count of how many natural area sites are in each county. And that's the home page for the natural areas. We also discussed environmental corridors. This map has our 2015 environmental corridors. We will update that in the near future with our 2020 environmental corridors. But if you zoom down on this map, you can see where the natural areas coincide with the environmental corridors, the current environmental corridors. So again, the lakes and streams can be toggled on and off with that. The next page is historic vegetation. The historic vegetation profile for Southeastern Wisconsin was developed based on the original surveyor's notes back in 1835. If you click on this image here, you can see some of the original notes describing that they found a black oak here and a white oak here, and that the land was rolling second rate. I'm not sure what that meant, but they used these notes to ultimately develop this historic vegetation layer. And what I've also done here is pull in some information from outside of the region to build a bigger picture of the state and the general area. So I also have the DNR vegetation, historic vegetation, as well as the Illinois information, all pulled together. So you can see how the oak savannas kind of started in Waukesha and Racine and Kenosha County and extended west, or that, Ozaukee County was very much a beech and maple forest, according to that original survey. We have some profiles on those original vegetation types, as well as a breakdown by county to compare. For instance, Ozaukee County, heavily beech and maple forested. Well, Walworth County had 150,000 acres of oak savanna. So very interesting reference for the original vegetation, as well as relation to the fire regimen. I'm going to jump to the archaeological sites. These archaeological sites that we have in this map come from the National Register of Historic Places. That's what we have mapped here. We do realize that there are many other archaeological sites that have been found and identified. These are only the sites that are on the National Register. 4 of those sites are on public land and have public access. When we want to iterate that, this is more for public observation and not access. These are protected sites. But we do have some information on those 4 sites that you can go to. One of them is Lizard Mound State Park. There is a park in Whitewater with them we do have links to that you can go and visit. In Cutler Park in Waukesha, it's right next to the library, the mounds. So you can absolutely go and visit these mounds, but we want to stress that these are not these are for observation and not for public access. The map does display that as well, and there is a table that tells you about each one of the sites. The geologic features. I always zoom down to the Waukesha drumlin feature because it's just so obvious what the drumlins are when you zoom down and look at these geologic features. But there is a pop-up that gives you a description of each one of the features. And some of them are much smaller. Some of them are just exposed bedrock at a quarry. However, that's still a feature of geologic significance because it's our access to inspect that. For instance, Shoemaker Reef in Milwaukee there. It's hard to talk about geologic features in southeastern Wisconsin without recognizing glaciation and its impact on the region. So we have some information about that, as well as bedrock within the region. The next page is management strategies. These are really basic general principles for each one of these natural area types. This page will expand. Is kind of phase 2 of this project is the management plans for each one of these sites. That would be shared here on this management strategies page. It will be a way to share information about projects. And that's the difference between the written natural areas plan, once it's adopted, is somewhat set in stone, whereas this is going to be an evolving website that we will always update with new information. And we have a resources and equity page where we discuss disadvantaged, a map that we have the disadvantaged tracts within Milwaukee County and other urban areas around the region. And we have that overlaid with lakes and streams and natural areas. We will also add some additional information in the future about our park and open spaces and additional access to other sites within the region that are related to this topic. But that is I've stepped through the entire natural areas webpage. I think that everybody just needs to kind of explore it on their own. I don't, are there any questions right away while I still have it up?
I just asked all to unmute if you want to. We can
Yeah.
kind of move to our discussion page. And one thing I wanted to emphasize what's unique too about this as we move to the digital age here, the site profiles themselves that Zach showed and what Ben alluded to there, they're a continued work in progress. But the big difference here is that they're only going to be housed on the website tool. They're not going to be in the plan document itself. So that allows them to be more accessible, and so that was our design, and we're saving on paper, and that's nearly 1,000 pages of printed maps and site profiles that we don't want to include in the plan itself. So with that, please in the chat or unmute yourself if you have any questions or comments moving forward here. Wow, I
Yeah,
get
I'd just like to say that this is a great tools, and uh, I represent Eagle Lake and Racine County and the project coordinator of reevaluating our eutrophic lake. I know we're not on the best, the high priority list, but hopefully your agency would be able to help us in going from eutrophic, upward. We are presently in we'll be starting year 3 of our water testing project. We're working with University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, and hopefully you guys will be able to help us in the future.
Yeah, something I'll mention on that is that we're developing the site profiles for the aquatic areas, but not just the ranking aquatic areas. The way we're trying to develop it is actually going to be providing a profile for essentially every lake in the region and providing some description of like the data we collected for that water body, as well as some kind of high level management recommendations. So hopefully that will be a great resource as well. So even for the non-ranking lakes and streams, we'll have some information available that folks can
That would
find
be
out more about those
definitely
areas.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess
This is going to be a lot of fun.
it.
well, and I guess I forgot all about it. I'll share my screen again. Because we're also kind of in tandem developing a lakes and streams site that's very, very similar to the natural area site, but it's under development right now. That's why it hasn't been made public yet. But again, a breakdown of all the elements that go into the ranking system, with other information tied to that, as well as management strategies. So that's coming down the road. It'll be very similar to the web tool for natural areas, but it will be lakes and streams specific. And I think that people will get a lot of use out of that. Probably in the next couple months, that will be ready to go.
Yeah, Faye, you have a question?
Am I ready?
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Wow, this work is phenomenal. I can't express my appreciation for the commission staff on updating the natural areas plan. I sit on the board of Waukesha County Environmental Action League, and I use your resources all the time for advocacy of protecting the special places in Waukesha County. I'm so excited about this Explorer tool. It'll make our advocacy much easier to get the data and the science that we need to advocate for protecting our areas. I kind of focus on the aquatic areas, and thank you for updating that portion of the natural areas and critical species habitat plan. This is so important to protecting these special lakes in Waukesha County and our streams. I have one concern. I don't see Spring Lake anywhere. Spring Lake is one of our outstanding water resources in the county, and it is not on any of the tables. I would hope that maybe you'd take a evaluation of that lake, and maybe it's the size. I don't know if it's the morphology that dipped it down into your ranking system, but hopefully you could take a look at that. We think that that is an important lake in our county, and needs some advocacy and protection. And the other thing is maybe a little bit more on management. I know that those management comes in like the lake management plans and in further refinements of these, but maybe a little bit more discussion about management of all of the natural areas, critical species habitats, and special aquatic areas. And maybe it's there. I haven't read the entire plan update yet, but that's always been a concern of mine, is that maybe there's a little more need for management. And I'll bring up one point. Wheel advocates for, we watch peers going in, and we were recently involved in a contested case hearing on a pier, transient pier going in on Nagawicca Lake in a sensitive area. And so any help that we can, people that the organizations that advocate for protecting at least those asnaris would be very helpful in your management portion of the plan. But maybe I'm asking for too much. But thank
thanks,
you.
Faye. I'll
Thank
touch on
you.
the
Thank
Spring
you.
Lake. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, and I just want to thank you so much. You don't know, Wheel and I, and other things that I do, really depend on the science and the resources that you provide for us to make good decisions on what we advocate for, and how other organizations protect the resources. Thank you.
Yeah, I can comment, Faye, on the Spring Lake thing real quick. I have to look at the actual table, but normally, so we do the morphology part was it's only 7 points out of 100. So usually when lakes weren't ranking, it's it's two big categories. Either there's not enough biotic inventory data on the aquatic plants or fisheries, and we try to identify that when lakes just don't have the surveys completed, and recommend that they had those surveys done so that hopefully they can rank and be recognized. The other category is when they have been done, but the surveys show that they're not very high quality. I'll look again at Spring Lake. We do consider and give points in our ranking scheme to outstanding and exceptional resource waters. So Spring Lake would be receiving points for a few points from its designation there. But my guess is, I have to look at it, but my guess is it's probably just lack of some of the survey data. We decided that where we don't have any information, we can't really assign any points based on what we might suspect a biotic community to be. So it might be a situation like that. And we do, in Chapter 7, we do discuss some kind of more general management recommendations for lakes and the natural areas. But obviously our lake management plans go into much more detail for the individual water bodies than we can do for all the lakes of the region as a whole. So
I would like to point out too that even our highest quality lakes, the AQ 1, 2s, and 3s, none of them really got close to 100% score or 100 points. So it's really a recognition that all of our lakes have been impacted and are still, obviously these ones are above and beyond quote unquote normal because we have the good information for that, but all of our lakes have opportunity to improve. And this ranking really allows us to compare them against each other, and it's really given us highlights actually for a lot of things to stand out, and questioning and finding out why certain lakes aren't ranking. That discussion has really even already improved our understanding what's going on in the region. And this tool was developed by a subcommittee from technical experts from around the region and the state, and so it's been a great opportunity, hopefully, to guide greater management for the entire region. So we encourage you to look at that and to give us more feedback too, to help us understand what maybe we're missing.
Another question I have is wetlands. Eagle Lake has 115 acres of wetland. According to your ranking, they're all disrupted, yada, yada, yada. I think it'd be very important for the wetlands, management style, what we can do in our, to promote restoration, of wetlands, because they're a very valuable source. And I look forward to your management recommendations, for disrupted wetlands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Eagle, I believe, or Spring Lake, I think I have. Sorry, did you say Spring Lake or Eagle Lake? Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
Ours is Eagle Lake. Eagle Lake,
Okay.
County.
All right, I'd have to look into that one to see what information we have, but sounds good. We can do that.
Mhm. Well, any other questions or comments for the record, if anyone would like to join in the discussion?
I will have all your phone numbers on speed dial.
Excellent. Call anytime.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Thank you very much, Zach, and everybody else. So yeah, I think this is a very important source, especially for community. In our newsletters and stuff, we'll put this on our web, the website and everything, so people can, look at it.
We've been in insulation for a hell of a long time. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome.
There you go. Are you done? All right, I'm having a shower.
Okay.
I'm not in the shower.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm gonna sign off. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. We wrapped up then, Tom, or?
I think so, yeah. With
Okay.
no other comments, yeah, I guess we will come to a close and yeah, thanks again for all attending and your good feedback. And please give us comments on the draft plan as well. It's on our website, and yeah, we're really looking forward to feedback from the web tools. So thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.